The air instantly turned freezing cold, and everyone began to shiver. In the middle of the apocalypse, he bumped into his office coworker. Even though he wanted to spend time with her, he knew she was just a burden, so he was going to leave. Once she spoke a few words, he made up his mind to lend her a hand. This time, the meat missed the vegan's plate. He spends his days working in an office. His boss is a bully who makes him feel small every single day. At least his hot friend is right there with him. To anyone watching from the outside, she looks like she wants something but just doesn't know how to ask. Then the air grew freezing cold, and when they checked their phones, they saw the whole world going wild. Suddenly, the air grows freezing cold, and snow begins to fall across Africa. Even if it's frozen, there's still water there. He has to get back to work, but the elevator is broken. So he climbed the stairs, nearly shivering from the cold. That's when our little one curls up tight to keep warm against the chill. When he finally arrives, the office is pitch black and filled with strange metal clanking. Then a zombie shuffles in, eager to chat. He bolts out the door and shuts it so his coworker can't get in. An urgent warning flashes across the screen, declaring that a virus has already spread. Now people are eating other people just to fill their hungry stomachs. Long ago, a system appeared to him that sold the things he needed to fight off zombies. Even though it felt strange, he thought he was just seeing things. All at once, the internet just died. It's so cold here that even Alaska feels warm by comparison. So he climbs the stairs with his phone's flashlight lighting the way. He finds a fresh set of clothes and changes into them, just in case he bumps into her again. You have to stay clean, don't you? He also stumbles upon a backpack packed with supplies and a blanket. And inside the manager's office, he spots something that could easily be used as a weapon. It's been 3 days since the cold came around, and things still don't look like they're getting any better. The only way to save them is by helicopter, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. He spots a coat hanging in the shop, but with no money in his pocket, he can't afford it. So he drifts off to sleep, his heart heavy with sadness. Then he jolts awake, hearing a noise at the door. He springs to his feet, clutching his golf club, only to find that what waits behind the door is no zombie at all. He spots the man, who says he squeezed through the emergency door to get there. But when the man asks for food, our hero lies and says there's none, then claims he'll just go grab some water. But the man grabs his arm with a strange look, questioning if that's true, and in the bathroom while filling a bottle, Jin Sung remembers the man was sweating even in all that cold. But once more, he convinces himself it's just his own paranoia talking. Suddenly, a zombie lunges at him, but he smashes it with a bottle and kicks its ribs. Only then does he realize it's the man from before, and he is shocked because the man was perfectly fine just moments ago. Then, Jin Sung grabs his club and begins to gently rub the top of his coworker's head. If he used to get headaches, he doesn't get them anymore. With that, the system chimes in to let him know he just won a coin. It happens so fast, but when he looked at the man's arm, he finally figured out how the infection started. He walked back to the office, lost in thought, until a sudden noise broke his concentration. Looking out the window, he watched a lone man struggle against a horde of zombies until he was quickly overwhelmed and turned into one of them. 3 days went by, and the phone battery was long gone. He spends all his time just staring out the window to save as much power as possible. While he watches a crowd of folks desperately trying to get away, he realizes with horror that each and every one of them has turned into a zombie. Even knowing sitting still will slowly kill him, he decides he must leave and find other survivors inside the building who he can truly trust. He picks the 6th floor as his target to check if the entrance is blocked, as Kim Ju-man warned. But when the lights suddenly flash on and the young man rushes to the windows, thinking everything is fine, he realizes the entire city is still dark, shattering his hope that someone turned on the emergency generator. As he moves forward, he worries the lights might go out any second, so he has to find the other survivors before it happens. He figures the culprit is likely hiding in either the admin office or the security office, both located on the 1st floor. Before going any deeper, he slips off his shoes to stay quiet and avoid drawing eyes. Shortly after, Jin Sung makes his way to the 6th floor, takes a quick peek, and spots a room that's locked from the inside. Seeing that makes him happy, so he knows there are other survivors in the building, but for now, he decides to hold back. He wonders if those zombies outside have finally broken in, but given the lobby's creepy state, there's a good chance some undead are already down there. Still, as soon as he steps through the door onto the 1st floor, he crashes straight into a horde of zombies, and while he's glad the monsters outside haven't gotten in yet, he admits he knew escaping wouldn't be easy and knows the doors won't hold for long. Knowing there was no time to lose, he made a snap decision to rush out of there. After a while, he finds his kind coworker dead in the office. Seeing how terrible he looks, Jin Sung knows the man has frozen to death. With respect, he gently closes the man's eyes and hopes he can rest in peace. After that, Jin-sung heads to the security office to look for survivors. But before he steps inside, he worries they might have set traps. He taps on the door with a barely there whisper just in case the zombies hear him. Suddenly, the door swung open before he could even reach for the handle. Suddenly, a guy steps out to attack him, but Jin-sung raises his bat and blocks the strike. The loud noise pulls the zombies right in. Despite his nerves, the guy with glasses grabs Jin-sung and drags him inside before slamming the door shut. After that, the two of them realize that neither of them is a zombie. Jin-sung says he came because the emergency generator sparked to life, and he knew there had to be someone else out there. To calm him down, Jin-sung steps forward and finally introduces himself properly. Another guy from the development team steps up, introducing himself as Choi Jae-sung. At first, Jin-sung fears the man might be infected just like Kim Joo-man, but he notices the stranger isn't sweating the way the old man did. Jin-sung can't help but think, did I actually step into the break room, or am I just feeling super chill for real? Then he figures that since the guy can hold his own, he's probably safe and isn't sick. Jin-sung tries to calm Jae-sung down, but Jae-sung keeps stepping back no matter what. Jin-sung begins to think of ways to make the quiet moment feel less awkward. So he decides to offer him a cigarette to help and asks if he'd like one. Jae-sung pauses for a moment, but then he finally agrees. After a while, he finally says he feels alive again. Jin-sung says he completely understands the situation, which is one of the few things they can still depend on. Right after that, Jin-sung says he's only eaten half a chocolate bar, so the other survivor starts digging through his backpack. Jin-sung thinks he grabs snack bars, but Jae-sung surprises him with a dry ramen pack and warns that eating too fast will hurt his stomach. Since he works on the dev team, Jin-sung asks if he packed up everything from the second floor, and Jae-sung confirms he did because there's no use keeping food in the fridge anymore. Both of them burst out laughing, admitting it's really true. Jin-sung asks about the second floor, and Four Eyes tells him it's in terrible shape. Jae-sung claims he was stuck in the break room with a coworker who kept pushing for them to leave while Jae-sung thought it was safer to wait for help, and they ended up sharing the food anyway. By the time he couldn't handle it any longer, he stormed out of the room and was hit by the infection almost right away. Jin-sung warns that there seem to be many zombies around, and Jae-sung confirms he has seen at least 4. After a while, Jae-sung had to keep moving because his battery was about to die. To escape, he threw something the other way to draw their attention away from him. Jin-sung praises him for getting away from 4 zombies without getting hurt. Jin-sung asks if he flipped the switch on the emergency generator, and the guy nods, saying he needed to charge his gear. The main character questions if that thing is even useful, while Four Eyes is shocked that he has been surviving without the internet. The kid says there's no signal either way, but the other guy mentioned trying satellite internet. Right after, he shows that while most servers are closed, a few friendly communities are still open to chat. Then the kid's phone finally connects to the network, allowing him to post a quick thank you message before a sudden noise makes Jin-sung realize the emergency generator is running out of power. He quickly shifts the conversation to ask what the main character plans to do now that he's staying. After hearing that, the kid realizes the guy clearly doesn't want him anywhere near, and he doesn't blame him. The very last thing he wants is for someone else to dig into his food while he sits there waiting to be saved. The kid says he's heading off to keep exploring. Jae-sung steps in and tosses him a flashlight and a charger to get him going. Jin-sung feels thrilled because if the lights go out, those things will come in super handy. To pay him back, the main character hands him a few cigarettes to help him relax. After that, the kid chooses to walk away, and Jae-sung waves him off with a wish for good luck. As the kid walks out, he spots a group of zombies, but they're so distracted that they don't even notice him. Reaching the stairs, he considers rushing down to his car to flee the building. But he stops himself since leaving the company right now isn't a good idea, so instead he decides to head up a few floors to gather more information before making an escape. Just as the lights flicker out, he remains steady because his flashlight is ready to lead the way. He creeps forward carefully, just in case the zombies have moved since he last checked. He climbs up a few flights, wondering if someone is on the next floor, but he can't tell if they're human or a zombie. So he snatches up his golf club and strides forward to face whatever lies ahead. He climbed a little higher and found that a woman had turned into a zombie. Jin-sung considers using her distraction to strike, but the undead spots him and lunges. Even so, he fights back and crashes her against the wall. Even though things are tough, she refuses to give up and keeps pushing forward. And this time, he strikes her hard, knocking her into the step, yet she keeps moving until he swings his bent club to end her for good. After that, Jin-sung gets another coin, just like last time. He couldn't stop wondering how that zombie got up there since the roof was locked tight. He thinks the 7th floor is probably unsafe, too. Right after he finds a spot to rest and chug some water, he thinks back to that last zombie realizing it moved so fast it felt more like a wild animal than anything human. He admits that if there are more than one, he'd get taken out easily, so he needs to find other survivors or keep the fights to just him and one opponent. After that, he checks the internet, but the only thing he finds are people grumbling about the heat. He grows frustrated as the silence about the zombies is broken only by survivors crying out for help. Jin-sung figures the government has fallen apart. He begins to lose hope, fearing he must survive alone in a world that feels like God has left it behind. By the 5th day, the biting cold forces him to wake up and exercise to stay warm, a harsh trick that leaves him famished and needing more food. So Jin-sung finally takes off his noisy shoes to move quietly through the freezing dark. He heads out to find some good food before things get bad, thinking that half the leftovers from the break room are still in his zombie coworker's bag. The trouble is there are likely more than 4 zombies, and grabbing the bag without them noticing is impossible. Jin-sung realizes the only way to get it is to pull them apart one by one. Then he draws a map of where all the zombies are, but he can't find the last one. He puts off that worry for now and sets off to find the tools he needs to fight the monsters. Next, he steps into a room that looks empty and finds some non-food supplies, but suddenly hearing a zombie in the hallway, he grabs a cup and throws it to get its attention. The zombie bites the bait just right, so the guy strikes him on the head to stop the noise that's pulling more zombies in. Jin-sung quickly slams the door shut just as they try to rush in. The kid beamed with joy because his plan worked out perfectly. He doesn't realize his leg is grabbed by the very undead he struck moments ago. It lunges to bite his heel, but he stops it by stomping hard on its head. After that, the protagonist picks up his golf club and puts the matter to rest. Then he shifts his focus to the other 2 people standing at the door. Jin-sung makes up his mind to put an end to this mess right now, so no more zombies get dragged into the fight. He smashes through the window and hurls a spoon inside to create a distraction. One zombie darts straight at the target, leaving its partner behind. The kid pushes the door open and snatches up the thing he'd save for later. At the same time, the undead creatures drawn to the spoon heard a strange noise and went to investigate. But he trips and gets knocked out by the main character. Now Jin-sung holds 4 coins in total. The kid shakes his head at the broken club, admitting there is no way he can keep playing with it. After finally grabbing the backpack full of supplies, he finds he has no weapons left, no matter what happened next. So he wonders if he should explore the place, since Jae-sung and his co-worker probably didn't leave the break room. And he's thrilled because his team earned a portable charger and some healthy snacks. So he decides to ride the wave of momentum and give Team 2 a look. Suddenly, a noise startles him, and he panics, thinking it's another zombie, because now he has no way to defend himself. So he turns and runs as fast as he can. He jokes elsewhere that he never imagined feeling this safe in an office, especially during a moment like this. Right after that, he decides to see what he managed to grab, and inside the backpack, there's a ton of food. Jae-sung feels a wave of relief that his supplies will last another month, yet he still shivers in the biting cold, proving that not all his troubles are solved. Before tackling that, he makes a point to scrub the grime off his body. As he washes up, he grumbles about the freezing water. Then he spots a cut on his heel and wonders if that zombie from earlier made it. Even so, he isn't too concerned because he believes you only turn into one of them if you actually get bitten. He checks online and finds that someone was scratched by a zombie but stayed safe for days, which proves his theory right. Jae-sung sighs with relief and stands up, but he quickly realizes a new trouble has just appeared. He needs a way to warm up his feet. He pushes open the shop window and sees a pile of winter clothes waiting for him. He glares at the high price tag, but knowing he has no choice, he sighs and decides to buy the boots. As he slipped them on, he was shocked that they fit so perfectly, making him wonder if someone had sewn them just for him. Right after that, Jin-sung wonders if there's anything else because just boots won't be enough. So he starts looking around the shop, finds something interesting right away, buys it, and suddenly feels more like a human again. By day 7, the water had finally been cut off, but he'd already saved 2 liters just in case, so he wasn't caught off guard. But that good feeling won't stick around for much longer than 3 or 4 days. After that, he lay down, feeling it was crazy that the water had stopped right as he was starting to feel alive again. As he scrolls through the internet, he notices many people talking about how the government has forgotten everyone. In another place, a man posts that he's getting ready to head to a small convenience store to look for supplies. He promises to share the tale of what happened if he makes it out alive. Lying there, the protagonist worried that new posts were slowly disappearing one by one. So, he figured most folks had already left. He stands up and sees almost no signs of survivors through the window, but Jin-sung refuses to believe everyone is dead because he knows someone must be hiding somewhere, just like him. By the 8th day, that same convenience store guy still hasn't shared anything. He knows that even with plenty of water and food, he can't stay in that spot forever. But to succeed, he'll need more survivors and allies, since taking the building all by himself is basically a death sentence. The biggest problem is that he can't move without a weapon in hand. But the kid only has one more golf club left, which will break and become useless after you knock out just 3 zombies. Jin Song spots the perfect hammer in the shop, but it costs 5 coins, the very money he could have used to buy warmer clothes. Right after that, he grabs his final bat and heads up to check out the other floors. He walks into the wrecked room and wonders why it's empty, noticing that the old bloodstains look like they've been there for a long time. Suddenly, he smells something rotting that shouldn't be there since no bodies are around, and then he finds himself unable to open a door that is firmly locked. Jin Song wonders if someone is hiding on the other side, even though he hears nothing, so he decides to smash the lock with his bat. As soon as he steps through the door, he sees a mountain of zombies piled up right there. He was stunned to find that 10 people alone would have been needed to pull off such a thing. After that, he figures joining forces with those people would make him feel safe, but he soon feels let down because there's nothing useful left there, showing that the place had already been picked clean. Then, he rushes to get a coffee, while secretly worrying if those people are still inside. Just as Jin Song was about to give up, he spotted a stray piece of paper wedged behind the machine. That note was left by the person who swept the floor clean. Inside, he shares his plan to leave the building on the 8th day after the outbreak and head to a safe island on the west coast to stay away from the zombies. Jin Song gets mad that the survivor fled the building a day before he arrived, but then he realizes the guy from the letter is actually an old friend who used to brag about being ex-special forces, and he also notices a note on the back saying a gift was left in the drawer. When Jin Song opens it, he finds some tokens for the coffee machine, and seeing them makes him smile. The next day, he reads the letter again and notices a warning to stay off the 5th floor, even though it doesn't seem like that many zombies would be there, but he knows the guy wouldn't warn him without a good reason. Then, he realizes it's been so long since he's seen even one person who survived. As time ticks by and his hope of finding a partner fades, he makes the bold choice to climb to other floors after already letting one opportunity slip away. Suddenly, a bright flash of light blinds him, and he panics, convinced someone is trying to get his attention. As he stares at the building next door, he spots a figure, but since it's too far away for Jin Song to see, he decides to use his phone zoom to get a better look. The sign warned that 6 and 7 floors were occupied, and another man was with him too. Jin Song jumps for joy at the news of more survivors in his building and vows to handle the 2 in the other building later. He snatches up his bat and marches forward looking for people he can trust. When he reaches the floor, he remembers the old blocked entrance and checks if it's clear now so he won't be mistaken for a zombie. He shouts his name and insists he's not a threat. Then he sees the entrance is clearly forced open by the mess around it, and he starts to wonder if someone else got in before him. Suddenly, a zombie lunges at him, but he swings his bat to block the attack. Right after that, he kicks the undead back. He snatches up a table to finish the work and makes some extra cash. Then Jin Sang goes off to find the other survivors while wondering if he's been tricked. Suddenly, the doorknob behind him begins to turn on its own. He steps forward and says once more that he means no harm. Inside, the person is shaking while holding the door tight. Jin Sang adds that he works there as part of the sales team. So he warns that if they don't reply, he'll smash the door open. Right as he's about to act, the door swings open and there stands Sang-woo. They sit down to chat, and Jin Sang is shocked to find out she has been living on that floor this whole time. She says that last night someone knocked on her door begging to get in, but she trusted her gut and didn't answer, only for the guy to realize she was alone and try to break it down. Seeing that, Sang-woo slipped into the break room, and in less than an hour, the guy had already turned into a zombie. After that, he got curious to see if the girl had anything to defend herself with. She tells me she's armed with a wooden spear. She told me how she grabbed a mop, used a box cutter to sharpen it, and turned it into something incredibly useful. When he saw blood on the spear's tip, he knew she'd likely already fought off some zombies. Right after, he realizes that in such a world, a woman is at a huge disadvantage. It's not just the zombies hunting her. Other people are after her too. Then, the guy stands up and heads for the door. The girl clutches his arm in shock, screaming that she's all alone and can't handle it. But Jin Sang apologizes because he just can't help her. Just as he's about to go, Sang-woo tells her he's seen her practice fencing. She also reveals that she's the one who killed all the zombies on the 6th floor. She warns him that he'll regret not teaming up with her. Hearing all that, the main character stood there with nothing to say. And then they team up to become allies. Next, she hands him a backpack filled with every piece of clothing and meal she could find. The guy asks if she has a portable charger, and she says no because they don't work. Jin Sang leans in and explains how satellites connect people across the world. After that, he starts to wonder just how many zombies are out there. She says there are 8 of them, and he feels glad they joined forces. She grabs a few more chargers and asks if it's time to go. But the guy sees strange marks on the door. Sang-woo explains that the mess happened because someone tried to break into the room. Jin-sang decides to take a closer look and stumbles upon a parking meter. He feels a rush of excitement because he finally has something to protect himself with, even though the catch is that it's not very long. Suddenly, the girl jumps in with a fresh idea. She chooses to fasten it onto her wooden spear. The main character admits it's actually really useful because he can use it like a spear and also jab people with the parking meter end. After that, he thanks her and feels it's a good thing to have more people around to help him survive. They both feel safe from hunger for now, knowing they have plenty of food. Jin-sung wonders just how she ended up with a frying pan in her hands. Shin-sung explained that she had meant to bring the item back because she didn't like the color, but she simply forgot to do it. He says the gear will melt the snow so they can drink the water. Right after that, she asks him how he knew she was hiding in the break room. He says he learned everything from the house right next door. Jin-sung shows her the message and suggests that others are thinking about forming a team. She wants to know if he was okay with that plan. He says he has no idea since joining up with strangers is too dangerous. Shin-sung explains that she stayed by his side because she was afraid she'd never find anyone else to trust. Right now, she refuses to let anyone else join their group. Knowing that, he decides they'll go it alone. After talking it over, she thinks their old boss is probably still alive because he fled on the very first day they shared the 6th floor. Jin-sung asks when they broke up, and she tells him it was on the 2nd day. Shin-sung guesses that Choi must be hiding on either the 3rd or 5th floor. As she drifts off, he worries that the folks from the other building might join the manager to hunt them down, but he forces himself to stop worrying about the chaos he can't fix. He grabs his coin and buys new gear to keep warm in the freezing cold. He thinks getting a hat would be smart, but he's scared that buying one means leaving his new partner without shoes, and if she can't walk, she'll just become a burden. After realizing he was being selfish and deciding to wait, he wakes up the next day to see her fiddling with her phone and asks her how much battery is left. She's startled to find him awake because the cold makes it hard for him to sleep, and he asks if she charged all the batteries, to which she replies yes. Sung-ah points out that the phone's battery is down to just 22%. Since they were chatting anyway, she asks if he looked for a solar generator on the roof. He basically admits he didn't even know that existed. The girl explained she had been running that small company support project for a bit. Originally, they planned to put the generator on the roof, but the whole project was scrapped after a hidden flaw was found before anyone could buy it. The guy asks if she can run the machine, and since she says yes and was in charge of the project, he decides to go up with her to check it out, so they head up to the snow-covered roof together. They spot a makeshift ladder that just might let them reach the generator. Jin-sung tugs at the ladder, but it won't move, so the girl steps up and says she'll climb on her own. She simply asks him to keep it steady. Right after that, the protagonist gives her a quick push to help her stand up. Watching Sung-like succeed on her very first attempt, he figured it must be easier for her since she's an athlete. After that, she finally spots the generator they have been searching for. Luckily, it isn't too heavy, so she'll break it apart and toss the pieces down to him. Then, she begins to give each picture panel to them one by one. After a long time, the two of them finally manage to gather everything in one place. The hero wonders if the machine will hold up against all those clouds. Sung-like says that if the sun is strong, it can power up to half of your phone's battery. A whole day goes by, and the phone only manages to charge up by 8%. Sung-like shakes his head and says there is nothing they can do. With no sun to guide him, he already knows where they're headed once they leave the office. He explains that the company warehouse is where they found not just food, but also the tools they need to survive. But if the car's GPS fails, they'll have to use the phone, which barely has any battery life left. Sung-like waves off the worry, noting that the warehouse sits just steps away from her own front door. She tells me she's passed that building many times while taking her walks. Hearing that, the protagonist felt truly glad he had met her. He decided that joining forces with Sung-like was the right choice because she is talented, hardworking, and can tackle many things. Next, he asks her shoe size since he's planning to buy her a pair of boots if they fit. She feels thankful and shares her size with him. Jin-sung runs off to fetch the boots for her, and they fit like a dream, but then a window suddenly pops up on his screen telling him that a group has been formed and every member's coins will flow straight into his pocket. Realizing this, he decides it's time to find more friends to help him out. Still, he can't figure out why it only appeared now and starts to wonder if giving her the boots was the reason. Senna notices he's zoned out and gets worried. Jin-sung admits he's just a little dizzy because he hasn't been eating well lately. After that, they decided to head out and hunt for something to eat. By day 14, with their water gone and thirst weighing them down, he says they must melt the snow to drink. Senna agrees to fetch the papers while he builds the fire on the roof, since setting one inside the building would be too dangerous. But he fears the smoke might draw looters, folks who have done some truly terrible things. Even though he knows the risks, he lights the fire anyway because they can no longer stand the freezing cold. Senna feels happy and alive again from the warmth, so she puts a pan of snow over the fire to melt it into water. As he sips the warm water, the protagonist feels a wave of emotion wash over him. With tears streaming down her face, the girl admits she had forgotten what warmth felt like, but she's glad they didn't quit, and he agrees, promising they'll reach the end together. Jean Senna wakes up confused in the morning to find her standing there, who explains that people from the other building tried to reach them and were coming their way, noting that she barely saw the message a short time ago. Senna shouted that they'd spotted them and took off running. He feels he can't trust those people because they might turn out to be dangerous. As they peek outside, they spot another group emerging from the building, so the two of them scramble to pack. While outside, that group fights off zombies with steady focus and will reach them in just 15 minutes if they keep this pace. Jean Senna and his co-worker have finished packing everything away. As the guys sprint down the street to escape the rising undead, one pulls out a sledgehammer and shatters the building's window to get inside. As they run away, the main guy spots Senna on the ground and fears she might be left behind. She questions if they should leave the power panels without electricity, but he insists survival comes first, so she agrees and runs again, only to soon hear noises that mean their pursuers are getting closer. Jean Song pauses, torn between heading down the stairs or climbing up to the roof. He worries that if they climb higher and the battle drags on, the freezing cold will put them at a serious disadvantage. So, he and his co-worker rush to seal off the 6th floor entrance and wait to see what happens next. Meanwhile, the intruders climbed the stairs, and the main guy realized they were getting closer and closer. Sienna doesn't get what's happening, so he explains that the men seem to be looking for other survivors. The intruders keep climbing higher and higher. Jean Sung shouts for her to get ready, but nothing happens, so Sienna knows something is wrong just as the building shakes without hurting either of them. She wonders if the blast was real, and he nods, saying it looks just like an explosion. He begins to question why they would use explosives when they only need to reach 2 people. Suddenly, he recalls the warning from the letter about the 5th floor, and the manager's stern face comes back to him. So, he clears away the barricade they built and tells Sienna it's time to go down. She wonders if it's safe, and he nods if he's right, only to find the place downstairs is completely wrecked. Jean Sung warns her to stay alert, and right after, they stumble upon a terrifying sight that looks like a horror movie, a group of people lying dead on the floor. He strides ahead and calls out for her to stay right there. He finds a door that's been kicked open, and inside, he hears a furious voice that sounds exactly like someone he knows. Manager Choi talks to himself about having no choice, which makes Jean Sung believe he caused that earlier explosion. Jean Sung yells at Choi, who smiles when he sees his old boss. But Jean Sung loses his mind because the man is missing his legs and is now crawling on the ground, begging for his life before he dies. Jean Sung stands frozen in shock, just as Sienna bursts in, claiming she heard the manager's voice. Choi perks up at the sight of her and asks if she still remembers him. Jean Sung apologizes, admitting they aren't doctors and have no medicine to help. Choi begins to panic, screaming that he wants to live and insisting there must be a way out. Then he says that even if he becomes a zombie, he will keep living. He begs to be taken to the 1st floor to meet the undead, but Jean Sung apologizes again and says they can't do it. Hearing that, Choi snaps and calls them ungrateful since he's the one who saved them from the looters. Then he yells at Sona for sleeping with Jean Sung and trying to survive on their own. After that, he turns to her and says, "It seems you've already swapped me out for someone else." But before he could keep spouting nonsense, he was dead. Outside, Jean Sung admits that those people really did look like looters. But Sona barely reacts, still frozen by shock. When he sees her like that, he tells her the manager is going to die no matter what. And honestly, ending it early probably saved him a lot of pain since he would have died from blood loss anyway. He tells her there is no reason for her to feel guilty. She suggests turning him into a zombie, but Jean Sung replies that they'd still end up killing him anyway. And she admits he was right. After a moment, they glance out the window and see that the horde of the dead outside has grown even larger. While everyone online is buzzing about yesterday's explosion and the crowds it brought, Jean Sung is furious because all that noise will just draw more thieves on top of the horde of zombies already tearing through the area. As time passed, the zombies spread out a bit, yet so many were still there that walking through the lobby was likely impossible. Right after that, the leader tells the group they must have a plan to escape the building within 2 days at most. Then the boy shouts for his partner to head downstairs and check the 1st floor. After that, they snatch their flashlights and rush down the stairs. All of a sudden, The girl hears something and asks if he heard it too. Jin Sung whispered that the noise seemed to be coming from upstairs. They slowly peek through a crack in the door and finally see a zombie. Sona feels terrible, fearing that Manager Choi might have turned into a zombie. The boy insists it can't happen since they smashed the guy on the head, which means the sickness couldn't return. She wonders if it was one of the looters, but the leader quickly shuts her down, reminding them that nobody had made it to the 5th floor. After that, Jin Sung guesses it's either the missing survivor from the 3rd floor or just a random zombie that crawled in, but the two of them choose to believe it's the lost human rather than a climbing undead. As they step onto the 1st floor and pry the door, just a crack, a huge wave of zombies rushes out to greet them in the lobby. Seeing that, the main guy is stunned because the situation is way worse than he expected. Then he spots the security room and worries about Jae-sung, knowing that if the boy is still inside, he must already sense the zombies outside, so he slams the door shut and warns his partner that trying to leave that way would be crazy. Sona points out the way down through the dark underground parking garage. The man recalls that monsters were down there before, so he decides to go take a look and see what's changed. When they reach the parking garage, they find very few zombies there. She counts about 10, and he says that's already better than the lobby. The boy notices how many cars have been left behind and says, "We've got plenty of vehicles to use for cover." With no wind below, they dash through fast, hiding from the zombies' noses. He asks if she can see her reflection in the curved mirror hanging high above. She claims she can't see well at first, but after shifting her angle, she spots the opening that leads to the 1st floor. Jin Sung shouts that's enough and yells at her to hurry back up to the 7th floor. Up there, Song insists it would be so much easier if they could just drive the cars, but the leader warns that after sitting in the freezing cold for so long, the batteries might be completely dead. After that, they set off on foot along the path they'd planned. Some time passes, and it's already 3:55 with just 5 hours left before they must leave the building. Even though they were lying back to back, the girl noticed that the guy couldn't sleep. Jin Sung wonders if it was really that easy to guess, and she explains that he's been tossing and turning all night, so he admits he's thinking about his friend on the 1st floor and Song says he can come along too. But the boy says no because doing it would put her in danger, even though he knows Jin Sung is someone he can trust. Soon he decided to invite his friend along, and she happily agreed. Jin Sung stands up and says he's going to check his phone. Then he points Jin Sung toward the emergency exit on the 1st floor, telling him that's the only way out of the building. When morning came, the main guy got no reply from anyone. Even though he felt discouraged, he decided to trust that his friend was already waiting for them at the meeting spot. But once they reach the 1st floor, they find no one there, so Song asks if they should wait a bit longer. Still, they rush down to the parking garage because they just can't wait any longer. Down below, they stumble upon a zombie that wasn't there before. Jin Sung urges her to stay true to the plan they had. While slipping quietly behind the vehicles, the girl whispers that the dead keep patrolling the same spots, with some still frozen in place. Suddenly, a zombie stands in their path, so the main guy slams his foot down hard to get its attention. The beast heard the sound and rushed straight at him. Before the zombie can reach him, Song-ah strikes it down with a swift stab of her spear. Because of that kill, the boy earns another coin from his group since she's one of them. Right after that, the two of them finally made it out of the building and into the fresh air. She points to a spot called Cheongji as their safe haven, where the zombies are stuck and can't climb the stairs. As they trudged through the blizzard, Sang-ah complained that they weren't moving fast enough, but her partner insisted this was still the only way forward. Soon they can see their destination, but they must move slowly because the road is packed with zombies. So they begin to crawl forward, but suddenly a fierce wind blasts up, which is terrible because it will blow their scent on the breeze. The zombies smell the humans and sprint toward them. Sang-ah freaks out because she has no idea what to do next. Jin Sung worries that trying to reach Cheongji will just mean the zombies tumble down the steps and draw even more attention to them. So, he decides they need to get inside a building, but he can't figure out which one to pick. The open buildings are already swarming with zombies, while forcing the closed ones in would make too much noise. She grabs his arm and says, "We have to choose right now." Suddenly, they see a bus pull up right beside them. They both push and pull at the door until it won't budge. Jin Sung suggests smashing it, but she tells him to wait just a moment. He turns his spear into a lever and pries it open. As the shamblers rush closer, he scrambles to slam the door shut. He grabs the keys he found on the bus and tries to lock the doors. Both of them are just hoping it works. A moment later, the zombies hit the door, but Jin Sung moves quickly and kills one with her spear, only for more to pile up while both of them grow more desperate to escape. Just as the bus miraculously starts running again, Jin Sung hits the gas, smashing his teammate out of the way. He shouts for her to grab on tight. The bus plows straight toward the building, and all Jin-sung can do is twist the wheel, but the steering won't budge. He finally understands the danger. The streets are frozen, and his tires are sliding. He tries to dodge a massive crash and swerves, but he still scrapes right against the side of the building. The bus halts, and he hopes the door is jammed shut, but the noise has drawn a swarm of zombies that are now circling the vehicle. Sang-ah says they need to draw the dead away, but Jin-sung warns that this plan will only work if someone is brave enough to go outside. He grows frustrated because if too many zombies pile on top of each other, they might actually tip the bus over. He won't accept that this is the end. Suddenly, a trash can right next to us gets smashed, and that noise catches the creature's attention. Once they were safely inside the bus, both of them finally let out a breath they'd been holding. They finally made it, and Sana says a few zombies are still nearby, but should just roll off the edge on their own. She guessed that whatever crushed the trash bin must have dropped from the second or third floor of a nearby building. She gets all excited thinking he might be a survivor who's still human. Suddenly, they see a woman waving at them from the window. Sana looks down and realizes she's still clutching the binoculars. Sana tapped her phone to say thanks for the help, and the other survivor gave a thumbs up. Sana insists that there's still good folks out there in this world. Then he says he'd love to share a bowl of noodles with those people. Sana asks if there's any left, and he replies that he ate it all before he even met her. Hearing that, she bursts into laughter, completely shocked that he really did it. Then she says there should be instant noodles at the logistics warehouse. As night drops down, the cold bites at them with a force they've never felt before. Sana reaches out to ask if she is all right, noticing how very pale her face has become. Seeing just how cold it has gotten, he admits those thin glass windows can't hold the chill out. Sana tries to tell him she's okay, but he sees her lips turning blue and notices her shaking even more. He insists they must warm up or their movements will fail, so Sana wonders if they can do it without building a fire. After a brief pause, Jin-san decides to build a fire anyway, noting the clever plan to poke holes in the roof for smoke to escape so they don't suffocate, since letting it out through the windows would just let the zombies in. Immediately after, she thrusts her spear through the ceiling to punch 4 holes, allowing them to light a small fire from the old office papers. Then Sana suddenly blurts out that someone in the community is talking about 2 people on a bus, and she admits she wants to join them. Realizing they were talking about us, the main guy asked where that user was, and the person said they were upstairs at a convenience store. To stay safe, the stranger asked the 2 of them to guess the car brand parked in front of the store, and they guess it right. After that, the user stops dodging the issue and asks to join the group. Meanwhile, Jin-sung wonders what comes next. One morning, a man wakes up and throws open his window to see what the world looks like from outside. Suddenly, he spots a zombie climbing up the side of his building. Panic taking over, the guy grabs whatever he can find in his apartment and starts throwing it. Someone wonders if they can start doing parkour now, and the guy replies that the zombie looks just like the neighbor from the next building who is always climbing, while the other person asks if that means the undead still have the skills they used to have when they were alive. Around 9 a.m., Jin-sung and his co-worker finally step off the bus. Sienna asked what he thought about what they read in the community, and he admitted he saw it coming because at the office, the zombies got in through the hole left by the explosion on Manager Choi's floor. Then, right at 9 o'clock, a woman steps out of the building right in front of them. Sienna gets so happy to see her that she even says she's jealous of the warm jacket the other woman is wearing. But just as they think they're a team of 3, a zombie jumps the woman before they can even celebrate. They stand frozen in shock, staring as it happens. Jin-sung notices the dead are following the scent toward them, and if they don't leave, they'll be next. He starts to walk away, but his partner stays right where she is. So he grabs her arm and tells her they have to run now if they want to live. Even though her legs are still shaking, she forces herself to keep walking right beside him. After a while, they reach the subway entrance, and the woman asks if leaving is a good idea since there might be a horde of zombies down there, people who are heading home from work before the apocalypse. Suddenly, the wind blows hard again, so they rush down into the subway, but they find no zombies waiting there. All they find are people who have already passed away. Jin-sung figured that since so few bodies had surfaced, the zombies must still be stuck down below. Suddenly, his co-worker taps his shoulder and points to a convenience store, making Jin-sung's eyes light up, only for that happy feeling to vanish instantly when he sees the shop is completely empty. Sienna wonders if they should go look inside the stockroom. Inside, they stumble upon a few cans of beer. Once outside, she sighs and admits it's terrible that the closed shops have already been stripped clean. Then the guy noticed it was strange that the phone shop had been left untouched. She says they'll have to walk a bit further than expected, about 20 kilometers. And she also mentions that earlier, she spotted something strange written on a wall and snapped a picture of it. In the picture, Someone scribbled that they're lost in all this mess. But right as they try to get a good look, the phone runs out of power. So they decide to keep moving down the train tracks. They're freaked out that it's so clean, there isn't even a rat or bat to be seen. But Jin Sung's real fear is that with so few bodies left, all the zombies must be waiting in one spot. Suddenly, he waves his hand to tell her to halt right away. He beams his light forward and spots a train waiting right there. They stepped inside to look for answers, but they found nothing but empty silence, not even a single body. Then she finds a box, opens it, and there, inside, lies a kitchen knife. Jin Sung reveals that he found something strange in a car earlier, just like the one before. He pulls out a speaker to show her how they can use it to call the zombies over. After finishing their search inside the train, they step outside only to find a 2-meter-tall zombie standing in front of them, which shocks Jin Sung. Sung remembers him as a retired pro baseball player, so the nervous guy warns us to stay as far away from him as we can. They take a slow step back, but the monster smells them and lunges, so the hero shouts for his partner to swap places with him right now. Right after that, Jin Sung thrusts his spear into the zombie's chest from a safe distance, while the girl takes her chance to smash its head with a golf club that instantly snaps under the blow. The undead instantly locks its gaze on her. The main guy is totally blown away by how strong it is. The creature pulls itself free of the spear and charges at Sung, but she dodges and plunges the sharp, broken end of her golf club into its head. They both talk about how scary strong that undead thing is. After that, Jin Sung apologizes for losing his temper, but his teammate soothes him by saying there was really nothing else they could have done back then. Sung pauses to think about whether he should also fasten that sharp metal piece onto his spear. He thinks it's a fantastic idea because it will make the weapon hit much harder. Then she makes the spear shine with new power. The leader claims they've had enough rest and want to move on, but she snaps at him for finding just trains when they need something that actually works. He remarks that someone must have arrived before them, while she adds that they were almost at a station named Sindang when an explosion suddenly went off. Even though they can't figure out what it is, he decides they won't go that way. Immediately after, the two of them sprint back. Inside the train, Sung asks what's happening, and he tells her to keep quiet. He gazed out the window, caught the sound of chaos, and knew something was coming, and indeed, a horde of zombies was heading straight for him. She asks if they should fight, but he says no, and they just wait until the undead rush past the train, leaving her relieved while he warns them not to relax yet and debates whether to follow the horde toward the station or head the other way toward the explosion. Song-ah suggests we keep hiding, but he says that's a bad idea because last time the zombies stayed away just because they were too angry to move. If they'd been moving slower, they would have surely sniffed them out. So she agrees to follow where he leads. They turn back to escape the zombies, but run into more undead, so Jin Sung says they must climb up to find a safe spot. He climbed to the station first, hoping that if they stayed careful, they could avoid them. Then he reaches down to help her up, but his sweaty hands let her slip and fall, drawing the zombies' attention. So he panics and yells for her to climb fast, and she grabs his hand again to scramble onto the platform just in time. But when a zombie grabs her leg, she stabs it in the face with her pickaxe and knocks it to the ground. They decide to flee the place in a hurry. As they start climbing the stairs, they bump into another zombie. He dives down fast so she can strike the finishing blow. As they press on, they stumble upon a few more dangers, but they brush them off with ease. Finally, they reach a safe place. Jin Sung asks about the world outside, but she shakes her head and says she can't see a thing. He finally lets out a long breath of relief that they're still alive. He suddenly thinks of her broken leg and feels pain for her. Song-ah tells us that something cut her while she was running away. When she realizes what that could mean, she panics, but Jin Sung is glad it's only a scratch and not a zombie bite. Upon hearing that, she finally relaxes. He insists she'll be okay because he's been scratched before and it never hurt him. Then she begins to weep, convinced that this was truly her last chance. Next, they grab the first aid kit to clean the wound. He says they were lucky to find a kit there after searching the whole place. He tells her to take a break while he continues searching and stumbles upon a strange key. He is so relieved now that he doesn't have to worry about finding a place to sleep. Still, that wasn't exactly what he was seeking, but it had to be hidden somewhere nearby. After finding a diary with a locker code inside, the guy heads to the safe, shows his teammate what he knows, and gets ready to open it. Song-ah wonders how he knew so much, and he admits he used to work in the subway. While waiting, he discovered that everyone writes down their secret codes inside their personal diaries. She wonders if the safe hides something special, but he says it's usually just the station keys inside. But what they really want is just a box holding a gun. He said it was just for those scary times when robbers or attackers show up. Then he passes the box to his partner and tells her to keep it safe. But Sana says no because she's never held a gun, and he tells her he understands. Right after that, Jin Sung pulls out the keys he found earlier and shows them to her. She asks them what they are going to open. He thinks they might be for the staff room. So they head into the room, and the key slides right into the lock. As soon as they step inside, they spot a zombie sitting right on the floor. But Sana checks and finds the bird has already died. After a bit, the two of them lie down on a bed, and she feels wonderfully cozy. She jokes that if they move again, they'll take the blankets with them, and he asks if that's even possible. She said their food was almost gone, so their bags had plenty of room to spare. She rolls over and asks him to sleep after their long day, but Jin Sung wakes up in the middle of the night worrying about their low food supply and decides they must reach the warehouse right away. He looks at the winter gear and knows they'll still freeze, and with things going wrong underground, they may soon be forced to brave the harsh surface. He sees he can finally buy clothes for himself and his friend, but knowing he can't decide on that right now, he lets things seem okay for the moment and saves his thoughts for later. After that, he realizes he might be able to upgrade. In the morning, he wakes Sung up. He grabs her hand and says they've got to leave right now. As they walk along the train tracks, they stumble upon a pile of cars tossed over like they were pushed, and he says it looks like someone did it on purpose. She hops onto a truck to take a closer look. On the other side, she spots a huge horde of zombies. Sung-ah scrambles back to him, panicking that hundreds must be dead over there. Hearing that, Jin Sung suggests giving it another try, but she says this is the only path that leads them to their destination. They sit down to talk things through calmly and consider going over the surface, but quickly realize the wind would help them reach the zombies. So he urges them to search again, convinced they might have overlooked something. Once his partner looks away, he clicks on an Explore tab that lets him buy hidden items, buys it immediately, checks for a vaccine, finds nothing, and finally realizes he won't need to use up the skill. He keeps trying new names like zombie antibodies or virus vaccines, but finds nothing, and though it frustrates him, he knows he did his best. Immediately after, he looks for deodorant and finds some waiting for him. When he watches the clock tick down to the final 90 minutes, he does the quick math and realizes he'll need to grab at least 3 of them because the trip to their destination is a grueling 4 hours long. He feels down because he was so proud of saving up his coins, but now he's about to spend them all at once. Then he heads back to Sedona, where she wonders where he found the deodorant, and he tells her he picked it up from a few bags on the platform. Sedona wonders if it will truly erase their scent. He says that in the worst case, they can simply run back. After that, they spray on their deodorant and head out the door. Jin Se-nong urges her to hurry since something dangerous could be right around the corner, and soon enough, they stumble upon an undead creature. Soon, they start to doubt if the deodorant is really doing its job. The zombie spins around to face them, and they rush into a defensive stance, only for it to walk right past them. Sedona gets excited because it looks like the deodorant really did the job. He says this will be a huge help to them. Soon she finds a gun shop that looks untouched, but the man warns her it's a terrible idea because if someone is inside, they're definitely armed. They spot a sign showing they're close to Sioux Station. Jin Se-nong fell down in the dumps since they'd missed their chance to reach Yui-dong, so after a delay, they decided to part ways and find a place to crash for the night. Sedona struggles to find any room where the windows haven't been shattered. Meanwhile, the guy just keeps stumbling into locked rooms filled with zombies. Not long after, they meet up again and share that they haven't found a place to stay. He wants a spot that's locked tight enough to keep the zombies away, but not so full of them that it's already overrun. Then they see a cafe door and decide to take a look inside. Sedona says the place feels bright and looks clear of any zombies. After that, she tries to open a door but finds it locked, and when she suggests breaking in, he refuses because smashing the glass might attract the undead, so he steps away to look for another way. He reaches his hand into a hole in the wall and pulls out a key. Curious about how he knew, Sedona learns that late-night cafes run on shift changes where keys are passed around and a spare is usually hidden nearby. They discover a pile of flour sacks waiting for them inside. She asks what to do with them, and he just says to leave them there. Those things are far too heavy to carry. He tells them that at this speed, they'll arrive at the warehouse by tomorrow. Feeling down, she asks if he thinks there are already people at the warehouse, just like there were at the gun shop. He says the odds are pretty good, so she suggests they come up with a secret code word in case one of them gets into trouble. After that, Sienna proposes they chat normally, so they can signal each other if they spot a gun. Jin Sung says to talk extra nice if we're using a close-up weapon. They keep practicing their codes, so her words blend in and sound just like a normal chat. Suddenly, a flash of lightning cuts through their conversation, leaving them stunned since they've never seen lightning dance with the falling snow. He warns that the snow will pile up even more, making it much harder to move around tomorrow. Right after that, she chooses to take a break and get some rest. After a while, he stirred from his nap and heard a strange noise. As he peeks outside, he spots a motorcyclist zooming by. Jin-sung can't understand why anyone would still be walking the streets so late at night. Knowing the rider is charging straight for the warehouse, he can't bring himself to believe it's really happening. Suddenly, a horde of zombies bursts onto the scene. Sienna wakes up confused and asking where they are, so he tells her they probably followed the motorcycle noise to this place. He feels annoyed as the road ahead fills with zombies, so she asks what they should do next. Jin-sung suggests the leader might be guiding the horde on purpose, but she warns they can't just wait around because they don't have enough food to survive the slow spread of the zombies. Suddenly, he suggests maybe there's something online, even though some folks are just chatting about thunder while it's actually snowing. And others are whispering rumors that there's a shelter hiding on Yongjong Island. Yet, some folks still claim it's all a fake story because there's a crazy cult hiding there. Another person suspects the shelter is really just a trap to steal the survivors' supplies. After reading it all, Sienna remarks that it's pretty dark. He remembered Hyuk-jae saying he was heading west across the sea, and if they could reach him, they might find some answers. Jin-sung convinces his friend to leave the scary online rumors behind, and they head to the logistics warehouse with a quick exit plan if things get too dangerous. As their last sprays of deodorant vanish, they know they have to hurry. The streets aren't nearly as full of zombies as they had hoped. Senna insists the warehouse has to be right next door. He warns that the thick fog is making it hard for them to see. But the deodorant is fading, so if they bump into a zombie, they'll have to fight. Just as they reach their destination, Jin-sang feels relieved seeing how high the walls are, knowing it means they're safer from prying eyes. The girl reaches for the gates and tries to push them open, but they're stuck fast. Then she notices the barbed wire wasn't there before. So the two of them decide to walk along the wall, searching for a weak spot, and they find a section that looks flimsier than the rest. Senna quickly says she's going to climb up, but the main guy warns her it's really dangerous since they have no idea what it's like inside. She says they have no other choice but to go ahead. The spray was wearing thin, so they hurried to find a place to hide. Jin-sang nods in agreement, but warns her to be careful, because some people on the other side might be very dangerous. She backs away, gathers speed, and uses him as a ladder to climb over the wall. She glances around quickly and decides to climb down, not noticing the dark figure watching her from the shadows. Senna leaps to the other side, but before she can cheer, someone grabs her and demands she raise her hands. He pats her down and confirms she has no weapons. He presses for the location of her partner, and with nowhere else to turn, she admits he's waiting outside. He tells her to ask her friend to head to the front gate. Senna yells at Jin-sang to run to the gate, and he instantly knows something is wrong. Seeing her words match their secret code, he realizes there's only one enemy with a gun. So he quickly pulls out his pistol and agrees to head to the gate as planned. Then the kidnapper demands he drop his gun and come outside. Jin-sang tells us he only has a spear for protection. Then he tosses it down onto the ground. Right after that, he starts worrying that since his weapon can't reach far, he has to sneak up on the enemy, but they might spot him coming. Jin-sang begged the kidnapper to release his friend, promising they had already done everything they were told. The guy told the girl to move away, and Jin-sang thought that was perfect because he could finally get close enough to strike him. Once Jin-sang reaches a safe distance, he suddenly pops up and points his gun at the man. Senna spots his move and dives down fast. Two guns fire, yet no one takes a bullet. The blast left him blind, and in his fear, he started shooting wildly in every direction. Sienna darts forward and knocks him right down. The guy starts screaming at them and calling them idiots, so Jin-sung tosses Sienna some tape to help her handle him. Suddenly, Jin-sung hears a noise and thinks it might be another enemy, only to realize it's zombies attracted by the gunshots. So he tells Sienna to grab the keys and open the gate while the kidnapper refuses to help. Jin-sung shouts that they're running out of time. Sienna loses her patience and kicks the man to get her way. Immediately after that, she finally manages to grab the keys. As she tastes each one, Jin-sung is practically fighting to survive. A zombie lunges at him, but he quickly ends it with a strong blow to the head. Then a second zombie lunges at him, but he can't swing his spear because it's still stuck in the first one. With nowhere else to go, he tosses his weapon away and rolls out of the way. Now, he's lying on the ground with nowhere to hide, but just as things get scary, the gate swings wide open and crashes right into the zombie's face. Sienna pops up and waves him to come inside. Jin-sung sprints forward, slams the gate shut, and leaves the hungry zombies trapped outside. Right after that, they felt a huge weight lift off their shoulders since neither of them had taken a single scratch. Jin-sung urges them to head into the warehouse without delay. Sienna looks at the guy and wonders what to do with him. Jin-sung suggests they bring him inside. She pulls him up, and Jin-sung gasps because it's his friend Jae-sung. As soon as they step into the warehouse, Sienna mentions she didn't expect to meet someone Jin-sung knew like that. Jin-sung warns Jae-sung not to scrub his eyes with the towel, and Jae-sung nods that he knows, but the sting is still too much to bear. Then Jae-sung takes the blame, admitting it was his mistake since he was the one who struck first. Jin-sung gives him a grateful nod for getting it. Afterward, the old boss hands them tea, and they drink it instantly without a single question. Jin-sung wonders how long he has been there, and Jae-sung replies that it has been about 3 days. He says he went there because of the solar panels. Then he said he was putting them in right when the guy showed up. Jae-sung admits that putting the panels on the low windows made them work terribly, so he had to move them all the way up to the roof to get any power at all. So he started looking for glass awnings to shield them from the snow, but luckily he found plenty of other materials to use instead. The main guy asks if the warehouse has enough supplies, and the other guy says the construction materials are well stocked, but admits he can't say the same for food. The girl asks if the food is in section 2, and he says yes, explaining that the roof gave way under the snow and he only made it out with what he could grab. Luckily, the cold kept everything safe from spoiling, so when the power returns, they can use their machines to fix everything back up. After that, Jin-sung finally asks if it's truly safe for them to stay with him. In that wild world, the guy realizes the smartest play is always finding a partner. Suddenly, Jin-sung blurts out that he was just about to ask the same thing. After the chaos at the gate, he knew he couldn't protect the place all by himself anymore. If he stays alone in the warehouse until more people show up, he's going to snap. Then he says this is the perfect time to team up with someone we can actually trust, and right after that, they see the zombies are still hanging out at the entrance. The leader wonders how their new partner got his gun, and Jin-sung explains he took it from a cop who ended his own life. Jin-sung asks if any bullets remain, only to learn that the other man has already fired the last one at the gate. The girl suggests that the zombies might actually keep other people from entering the warehouse. Just then, the hero's tummy let out a loud growl, turning him red with embarrassment. So, Jin-sung whips up some instant ramen to serve his guests. They practically glow with excitement at the sight of the food, but he insists the noodles still need a bit more time to cook. Things just keep getting better as Sung-ae grabs the beers they had saved up earlier. After a bit, the food is ready, and Jin-sung gets a little teary-eyed when he takes that very first bite. The girl says the ramen broth is going straight into her soul. Then Jin-sung stands up to propose a toast, and the three of them celebrate their new alliance before the main guy jokes that he'd forgotten what it feels like to be full. He says having hot food and a place to rest feels amazing, yet the biting cold still makes them suffer. Sung-ae recalls the building has heat, but Jin-sung claims it's broken, so the guy asks what else they can burn, and his friend suggests using a brazier from the warehouse as a stove. The main character asked if there was any firewood left, but the other guy said he had looked everywhere and found none. So the two begin arguing over what to use to start fire. She points to the woods just beyond us. Hearing that, Jin-sung thinks they should rush to grab the brazier now and just wait until it's safer outside to gather wood. As he walks down with the main guy, he points out that things like spoons and cleaners are on the first floor. Jin-sung finally gets to think about brushing his teeth. He tells his friend that they won't need to worry about pots and kettles or any other kitchen gear, either. Up on the 5th floor, they stumble into a cluttered supply room piled high with nothing but broken pencils and worn-out pens. Spotting Jin-sung's shirt, the man asks where the winter clothes are. Jin-sung points out a massive pile and promises they'll grab some as soon as they get the braziers. Then Four Eyes grumbled about the shoes he found there. The shoes were so huge that he stuffed on many layers of socks just to make them fit. Hearing that, the main guy opens a shop, buys a pair of boots for him, and asks if he wants to try them on. Jin-sung puts them on, and they fit perfectly, making him an official member of the group. After that, the men finally found exactly what they had been looking for. Each of them grabs a side and begins hauling the heavy thing through the building. Halfway to their destination, the main guy spots the brazier on the floor and smiles, telling his curious buddy that the warehouse is missing one special thing, while Jin-sung hands him a few cigarettes as thanks for the earlier ramen. The guy starts getting all teary-eyed and tries to give him a hug, but the kid tells him to stop with the weird behavior. Afterward, the pair head back, and the main character reveals the coats they found, plus some face soap and a toothbrush with toothpaste. Seeing that, Sung jumps with joy, and for the next 3 days the team upgrades the camp by building a kitchen and a mattress storage area. But since the storm makes installing the panels too dangerous, they decide to set them up in an open spot on the 5th floor instead. As time went on, the zombies began to creep out slowly. Then Jin-sung tells us it's time to peek outside and see what's happening. The boy tells you that he's been thinking about the gunshot from earlier. Seona says she'll go with them, but warns that heading so far is too dangerous. The young man agrees with her since they lack enough coins to stay safe from the zombies, while someone else races a motorcycle down the streets with a giant crowd of undead chasing them. Some zombies chased a man on a bike up a staircase where they couldn't follow, only to realize too late that he wasn't fleeing but luring them into the neighborhood. The community users knew that guy was a real jerk because he's basically leading a horde of people. Once the camp is set up, the team breaks into smaller groups to tackle their specific tasks. Seona manages the inside and counts everything in the storage room. Jae-sung is the guy who brings in all the neighborhood news and keeps the machines running by fixing them when things go wrong. He walks over to the girl and tells her he's been working on the generator, but he hasn't made much headway yet. She asks if he can lend a hand to tidy up the kitchen supplies. Meanwhile, the MC patrols the warehouse until he bumps into the others in the storage area. Jae-sung says he's around because the bad weather makes using the generator a bad idea. The protagonist nodded, saying he'd guessed it all along because the fog was so thick you could barely see a foot in front of you. Jae-sung notes that it's been ages since they last stepped out for a check. Immediately after, Jae-sung stands ready in front of the warehouse, bundled in his winter gear with his bicycle. He wonders why his friends are giving him such odd looks. The girl worries about him going by himself, but he says his friends must stay behind to guard the shelter in case someone tries to break in. Plus, he has nothing to fear because he's holding a spear. Then the boy hops on his bike, promising to return with a magic cooking stove and some deadly gear. Jae-sung explains that he has rigged up ropes to tie the stove securely to the protagonist's backpack. He gives thanks and tells him he's on his way out. For the final time, the girl asks her friend to run back if things turn too dangerous. Right after that, the kid pedals down the street feeling great about having Seona on his side. Still, he keeps his guard up because zombies might be waiting for him when he gets to the apartment complex. He arrives at the school and sees that he has almost reached his destination. Suddenly the wind howls hard, but it's a blessing because it blows in his face to keep the zombies from smelling him. Suddenly, Jin-sung starts catching the stink of burnt fumes, just like a car that's crashed. Then, he hears the sound of a motorcycle. Right after that, a huge crowd of zombies suddenly shows up right in front of him. He knew that the motorcycle chasing the dead was the same one he had just seen. Jin-sung pedals furiously, but the chains sink deep into the snow, holding him back from going faster. He figures he needs a place to hide, so he makes his way to the school he spotted earlier. He reaches for the door, only to find it locked shut. Then he circles the building, hunting for a secret way to slip inside. He manages to push open the window, but just as he's about to jump inside, a zombie grabs his leg. He kicks the undead creature trying to get free, but it won't let go of his foot. Jin-sung grabs a spear from his backpack and plunges it straight into the zombie's head. Finally, his leg is free and he tumbles backward, yet the zombie keeps coming. The kid slams the window shut before the thing can do anything. He reflects on how close he came to dying, drops to his knees in exhaustion, while Seona grows anxious and Jae-sung asks if she is worried. The girl says the dark outside is making her feel jittery. The guy recommends using his phone, which he managed to charge up to 8%. Her curiosity grows as she seeks out the latest community news, hearing online rumors that zombies can now smell blood. Right after that, Jae-sung steps into a room that feels safe. As he peeks through the window, he freezes in shock to see a terrifying army of the dead marching outside. He thinks the biker leading them is the same one from before, but then a zombie taller than 2 meters suddenly stands out in the group. Jae-sung reads about the monsters shifting and realizes things are getting way too dangerous. Then they spot a message saying the biker was guiding the zombies to where people were hiding in Banghak-dong. After reading that, Seona's worry grows because her partner is right in that same area. Jae-sung quickly grabs her arm and demands to know where she thinks she's going. She warns that at this speed, the main guy is about to charge right into that horde. If he bumps into them, there'll be nothing left to find, so she turns and heads out of the warehouse to track down her teammate. But the guy says it's already past the point of no return. Seona leans forward and asks what he really means by that. Jae-sung warns that the horde spotted in the morning is likely already closing in. He says their top job right now is to shore up the place so the horde can't break through. Hearing those words, the girl vows to do whatever it takes to guard the warehouse, while Jae-sung catches a noise from the classroom next door and hopes it means he can find another survivor to team up with. But when he opens the door, he discovers a zombie child staring back, and he quickly grabs its attention. It whirls around and charges at him, but he meets its rush with one sharp blow from his spear. Jae-sung apologizes to the child, his eyes full of tears. After that, he keeps moving through the building, but there aren't any other zombies. Then he finds a quiet place to take a break. He walks to the window, praying that by tomorrow morning, both the rain and the zombies will have vanished. Jae-sung settles into his sleeping bag, worrying if the warehouse is safe now that the horde is marching toward Uidong. After a while, He opens his eyes and finds the street outside quiet and free of any undead. He grabs his chance to rush to another school building, only to find it in total ruins. He spots some baseball bats he could use as weapons. Next, he heads into the kitchen, spots a zombie, wipes it out, and pockets another coin. After that, Jae-sung finds a stove, but it isn't an induction one. He wonders how nice it would be to have a fridge or an oven, but he knows carrying either would be really hard. With nowhere else to go, he makes the hard choice to step into the city. He hops on his bike and pedals hard toward his goal, only to find a horde of zombies waiting right in his path. So he creeps quietly behind the cars. He spots those towering buildings and decides to head over there. He steps to the entrance and sees broken glass, so he guesses a fight must have happened there. He still feels a sense of relief because the place looks safe. Then he grabs his flashlight and heads up to the upper floors. As he climbs higher, he spots a door but worries that kicking it open might trigger an alarm. Jae-sung grabs his sledgehammer and smashes the lock. Even though the inside is a total mess, there's still no danger. Then he gets really excited because he finally finds an induction stove. He breaks it down so he can fit it inside his bag. After a while, he finally decides to take a break. Jae-sung admits that he doesn't remember the last time he actually slept in a bed. Just as he was about to drift off to sleep, strange noises began to creep into his ears. As he gazes out the window, he spots zombies scaling the building next door, and it makes him wonder if there's a reason behind their strange actions. Then he suddenly spots someone standing in the building across from him. Jae-sung knows this is trouble because all the undead are crowding together in one place. Even though it's mortifying, he knows there's no way out. So he'll seize this perfect moment to flee while that person draws the monsters away. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, and it was the girl from across the street who fired it. The man worries that all that noise will pull zombies out from meters away. He's terrified because he's now trapped, watching an hour pass as the girl shoots straight and wipes out one zombie after another without missing a single shot. He watches her and wonders if she might be a soldier. Then he gets frustrated that she isn't on his team, because without her he won't be able to earn those coins. Thinking it might be a good idea, he decides to call out to her and try to team up. He had a trustworthy ally and a stash of weapons to back him up. Jin-sung stops watching and decides to wait, knowing the zombies won't scatter for at least a day anyway. But eventually, the hero wakes up to find that a massive horde of undead is still out there. At least the girl looks like she's finally put down her gun. He wishes he had left sooner, for his supplies are almost gone and now he can only wait. Right after that, he tosses and turns in bed, unable to sleep because the zombies are heading toward the warehouse. To keep his mind off things, he starts digging through the store. He discovers a random box that costs 10 coins. He wants to see what comes out of it before spending his money, but he simply doesn't have enough coins yet. Just as suddenly, a huge explosion rocks the scene, and the guy is completely in the dark about what just happened. Jin-sung spots the zombies heading south. Seeing his opening, he grabs it and finally makes his escape. He fastens the stove to his bike and rides out with great care. But just as he reaches the door, he crashes into a group of undead. He stands there, puzzled about how to take down these monsters, just as he spots the girl from the other building rushing to escape. Suddenly, she waves and makes her way toward him. The blonde steps forward, a zombie blocks her way, so she quickly knocks it down with a shot from her gun. Jin-sung is amazed by how she moves and starts to wonder if she might actually belong to a special forces team. She walks right up to him, holds out a hand, and tells him she wants no fight, yet he remains nervous because she hasn't put down her weapon. Immediately after, she asks if he's brought anyone along. Jin-sung hides a gun behind his back and tells them he's alone and doesn't want to fight. Then they introduce themselves, and the girl tells them her name is Sihan. She says there's not much left around that apartment complex. As they rest, she asks him if he's been living by himself. Jin-sung chooses to play it safe for now since he can't trust her yet. Then he asks her the very same question. Sihan tells us that her military teammates are all dead now, and after a scary horde attacked their base near Bonghak-dong, she had to run away alone. She snaps and blames it all on the biker. Then Sihan asks if he has a destination in mind. He tells us he's on his way to the gun shop because there's nothing better than having a weapon to keep yourself safe in this crazy world. She asks if he can shoot, and he nods and says yes. Hearing this, Sihan slides a heavy gun into the hands of her new partner. He asks her if she's really okay with him keeping it. She says she has plenty, so Jin-sung thanks her and says that's more than enough. Now that he has weapons, Sihan wonders what he should do next. He lies once more, claiming he will find a safe spot to finally settle down. After hearing that, she tells him to come along because it's much better if they stick together. Jin-sung guesses she just doesn't want to be alone, so he seizes this chance to see if he can truly trust her. After that, he follows her as she takes out zombies along the way. As he watched her, he realized he'd rather not be on the wrong side of her. After a while, she guided him swiftly through Samcheongdong until they finally arrived. So Sihyun says it's time to pause their walk and rest for a bit. They sit in the restaurant and talk about grabbing a sweet treat to get their energy back. Soon after, they stand up and prepare to walk away. The girl insists they need to hunt for food first, and the main guy nods in agreement. But before they can finish talking, someone starts shooting at them. Sihyun dashes to take her spot and fires back instantly, as if she already knows exactly who is shooting at her. Noticing this, Jin-sung begins to wonder if the enemies are holding a grudge against her. He sprints over to her and demands to know what's happening, but she stays quiet while keeping the gun firing. The shooters reveal they are soldiers and warn Kelly that if she doesn't give up, she will die. She keeps shooting nonstop, but the guy begs her to quit because she's about to draw a whole horde of zombies right to them. Sihyun vows she will never give up because she simply cannot return to that place. Then she tells him those men did terrible things to her body, and he is completely shocked. Jin-sung starts to doubt if he can trust her and wonders what he should do, but then she suddenly grabs him and throws him in front of the bullets, promising to surrender, and miraculously, not a single shot hits him. He dives to the floor to stay safe and tells the other person he doesn't want to fight. One soldier waves at the others to halt their fire. Sihyun spots the escape and dives for it, but a bullet hits her arm before she can get far. Despite being hurt, she keeps moving forward while soldiers chase her from behind. Other men approach Jin-sung to ask if he speaks their language, and he says yes. First, a soldier named Brian introduces himself and asks if Jin-sung is Kelly's partner, but Jin-sung replies that he doesn't even know who Kelly is. Then the guy tells Jin-sung that the woman from before was Kelly, but Jin-sung replies that she had introduced herself as Si-hyun. Right after that, he says he met her a few hours ago and they decided to team up. He also says Kelly told him the men did horrible things to her, but the soldiers can't believe it because they say she was the one who betrayed them by trying to steal food and killing one of them. Jin-sung can't decide which story to trust. The men who hunted Kelly said they couldn't catch her because their gunshots pulled the zombies toward them, turning the search into a nightmare. Brian asks how many undead were there, and his men say there are enough of them to hold off the attackers for a long time. After the commander steps up to Jin-sung and decides to trust him, Jin-sung gratefully accepts the faith, only for the soldiers to later stumble upon his surprisingly heavy bike and wonder what could weigh it down so much. Jin-sung steps forward with a worried look, claiming the backpack is as before he loses everything to the fast-moving chaos. One of the men glares at him and shouts that they've found one of their own guns. Jin-sung realizes they might never get their stuff back. Then Brian steps up to him, giving him his backpack and saying he hopes Jin-sung won't use what's inside for anything bad. The soldiers walked away, wishing they could meet him again one day. Jin-sung grabs his bike and rides off toward home, but he hits a snag when his bike gets shot up in the crossfire. He grabs his small stove and begins walking through the blizzard. So he decides to grab some repellent just in case, since he still has 1.5 kilometers left to walk to the warehouse. When Jin-sung opens his shop, he discovers he has 16 coins, but no idea where they came from. He starts wondering how he got that money from Kelly's kills, but it feels wrong because he never even got a message saying they were in the same group. But since the system only lists Sana and Jae-sung as his team, he realizes some zombies must have died inside the warehouse. Then he recalls that swarm from before. Jin-sung dashes back to base, hoping he still has time to make it. Meanwhile, a huge crowd of zombies piles up at the warehouse door while Sana and Jae-sung do everything they can to keep them back. It doesn't take long for the creatures to snap a chain and send the guy flying back. She pulls her partner toward the door and whispers that they must go inside, since fighting to keep the entrance is now useless. On the stairs, she grabs her weapons and tells her friends that if any zombies break inside, they'll have to fight them off. He points out that even if zombies can't climb stairs, they can still creep up from the slopes. She explains that if they force the undead into a tight squeeze, they should hold out for a bit. Seeing her teammates still unarmed, Sienna nods and tells him to get into position. But Jason insists they can still choose to run away. He began walking down the stairs, but she stopped him by reminding him that everyone had promised to protect the warehouse until Jin-sung returned. He made it clear he wasn't running away on his friend. He just wanted to get out of there first and sort things out later. She says she can't do it, so she's sticking around at the base no matter what. Right after that, she lets go and tells him to stop thinking about running and just grab his weapon. At first, he pauses, but then he chooses to stay and watch what happens. Then Sienna hears a sound, glances out the window, and spots the biker. She finds it strange because the person feels strangely familiar to her. He lifts his visor, and she gasps in surprise when she finally sees his face. After snapping the chains and bursting into the warehouse, the zombies find their path blocked by the building's strong glass doors. Even so, The two get ready to fight because they know the dead are about to break in, while Jin-sung steps out to kill a lone zombie near the base, thinking it's just a straggler. Immediately after, he sprints toward the warehouse and discovers the entrance has been smashed apart. He stubbornly won't accept that the worst has happened. Inside, the zombies smash through the glass, and Sanai fights them off, but she's getting too tired to keep going. Jin-sung bursts through the door to find a horror of dead bodies everywhere, searches frantically for his friends' things to see they didn't run, screams for them in panic with no answer, and finally reaches a spot where the undead seem to have stopped moving. He can't stop imagining the worst, but he won't believe it's true. Out of nowhere, a voice calls Jin-sung's name. Just as he spins around, his friends are standing right there, and the three of them are finally together again. Once they reach safety, Sanai showed that the reinforced glass door held up well until they managed to break a hole in it. Thanks to that plan, defending the place came easy for them. Jin-sung even let his heroic side peek through. Once so many bodies piled up, the other zombies couldn't get any closer. Finally, they shut the door tight once more, and after a short while, the monsters vanished. Jin-sung asked what they had been doing when they arrived, and she explained that the gate was broken, so they went to gather scrap to repair it. Hearing that, he admits they truly did work their absolute hardest. Then, he smiles and tells us he has finally reached his goal. They set up the induction stove, and Jin-sung claims it's enough to build a generator. Sauna starts complimenting Jin-sung, and it completely makes him think he's the best. Then, he reveals the weapon he finally managed to get. His friends can't believe they found out where he even got something like that. He says they'll lose their minds once they hear the whole tale. After that, the group collects wood to build a campfire. Jin-sung questions what they will have for their meal. Next, Jin-sung grabs a giant bag of chicken to roast for everyone. Soon the three of them start cooking it, and the smell gets to them so bad. As soon as the food is ready, everyone grabs a piece, takes their first bite, and gets super excited because it tastes amazing. After they've eaten their fill, Sauna remarks that there's a strange comfort in not having to worry about work, admitting she's not even sure if they'll ever return to normal life. Jin-sung questions if she's losing her mind since they're clearly heading back. Then Jin-sung claims the only thing missing to make it perfect is an ice-cold beer, and he jokes that next time they'll raid a beer factory, just as the four-eyed friend suddenly reminds them about the biker they saw earlier, noting that Sauna finally got a good look at his face. She claims it was a friend of theirs. Then, she recalled the chaotic internship where 15 spots were meant for 16 eager people. That extra guy, Minte, had some special privileges because he was the CEO's son. Jin-sung is stunned to discover that the crazy man driving the zombies on the motorcycle is someone from his old workplace. Jin-sung insists it can't be him, but he's still baffled by what the other person is trying to say. Jin-sung reveals that Minte has a twin who looks exactly like him. They might look identical, but their personalities are worlds apart, with Minte being a scandal-prone creep who always got himself in trouble. Meanwhile, his brother Min-sung was super disciplined, landing him an early spot at a science school and helping him earn a PhD abroad. After graduating, he returned to Korea, applied for a job at the company, and then disappeared without a single word from anyone ever again. Jin-sung thinks their coworker likely spotted the older brother Minte, but he's not completely ruling out the younger one. Since Min-sung is such a genius, he works at the company and could be part of this, but the guys just dismiss that idea. Right after that, the protagonist asks if the girl is certain about what she saw, and she nods, saying her eyes are sharp. So Jin-sung rules that the secret stays inside the team. After that, Jin-sung shared a surprising discovery that had surfaced in the community. They discovered the shocking truth about the West Coast shelter, the very same place the trio had already felt was shady. It turns out someone shared pictures that prove this really is a cult. The group's name basically means the destruction of the world. It looks like they used that crowd to seize control of Incheon International Airport. Sang-woo noted that the airport is packed with facilities, making it feel much more livable than they ever imagined. Jae-sung starts to think he needs to pay closer attention to what's going on. The other guy warns that getting mixed up with religious groups is a bad idea, because it could turn into a mess if their strange beliefs clash with yours. Hearing that, he promises to just pick out the most exciting parts for the protagonist. In the morning, Jae-sung walks up to the broken gate, looks at how badly it's falling apart, and says they have to do something about it. The protagonist whispers that they'll have to fix it in the shadows so nobody notices. Then the two of them get to work fixing things up. The guy falls to the ground, completely spent after 6 long hours of work. Jae-sung claims the fix is almost finished. She also says that adding a double gate was a great improvement. After that, Jae-sung asks his co-worker to head inside since the cold is biting, leaving her to wonder if he actually did his share. As they step into the warehouse, they spot a shiny new bike that isn't meant for racing, but actually powers the whole place. He says he put it right in front of the window, so they can pedal while looking out at the view. The bike runs on moving energy, so the hero asks his friend to explain how it works in plain words. Jae-sung admits the machine isn't working very well at all. He says that if you pedal for an hour, the machine only works for about 15 minutes. But he insists that pedaling for just half an hour is enough to fully charge a phone. Sang-woo thinks it's pretty cool that they now have more than just the sun to power their lights. Jae-sung thanked him, because now thanks to his help, they'll have a steadier flow of electricity. That night, the hero peered into the shop window, wishing they could find something to keep their place safe. He tosses a coin to activate his search skill and rummages for gear to keep intruders out, but his pockets come up empty. Next, he looks for a weapon, but the search comes up empty. Then he starts looking for a GPS tracker, and the skill finds something that looks just like it. You could buy this 24-hour location tracker for just 7 coins. Jin-sung can't stop believing that buying the device will let him track a target or reunite lost friends. So he immediately runs in, screaming at his friend to wake up. In just a few moments, the three of them are ready to protect themselves. Sana's heart races because she's never held a gun before. The protagonist soothes her fears by explaining that it's easy. Just aim and shoot. After that, Jin-sung tells her she doesn't have to fire anyone as long as they try to be reasonable. Although she feels nervous, she insists she understands what's happening. He whispers to his partner to keep an eye out for any signs from Jin-sung. He peeks through a crack and spots 2 people heading toward the warehouse, with one of them looking like a kid. Sana whispers that it looks like just 2 of us, with no sign of anyone else around. After that, the hero aims his gun at them and shouts for them to stop. Jin-sung asks the man and the little girl to say who they are, and the old man admits he's just a weak traveler with his granddaughter. The boy starts wondering where they came from. The old man tells us they've been running from zombies with nowhere to go and their last safe spot wiped out, so he asks for help because all he has left to protect himself is an axe. Sana wonders if others are with them, but the old man shakes his head and says it's just the 2 of them. After that, he whispers to his teammate to duck behind cover and keep a sharp lookout. Jin-sung swings open the first door and waves them inside to move slow, then points to the space between the 2 gates and asks them to wait right there. The girl wonders why they can't let an old man and a kid in. Jin-sung warns that it's too risky because in this world, friends can suddenly turn against each other. Then the 2 begin bickering over whether to let strangers in, while Jin-sung believes neither is truly at fault, yet insists on opening the door to boost their group's numbers, and though he understands his partner's hesitation, he knows they need more people right now. The boy says the old man is surprisingly strong despite looking weak from hunger and can help clear the rubble, while the child can join in guarding them. After they checked the old man's bag and found nothing but his backpack, Jin-sung gave the go-ahead, so the protagonist let them pass, and they bowed in grateful thanks. As soon as Jin-sung steps inside, he asks the old man when they last ate, and the man says it's been about 10 days. Hearing that, the boy quickly boils up some instant noodles for the man and his granddaughter. Once the little girl had her fill, she drifted off to sleep, and Sung-hai couldn't stop herself from gazing at how cute she looked. Then the young guy wonders how the old man and girl managed to get there. The old man tells a story of his past life as a hunter in Gangwon-do, where he used to track and take down wild boars. Hearing that, the 3 of them finally get it. This isn't just some regular old guy. Once Sung-hai heard his entire story, she grew emotional and admitted that it must have been incredibly hard for him. The protagonist stands up, convinced there's nothing strange or suspicious about the man's tale. Then he reaches out a hand and tells them they can stay right there. The old man stood there looking lost, wondering why they hadn't thrown him out at first light like he expected. Jin-sung-hai smiles and says they must help each other to survive. Moved, the man began thanking them and promised he'd do whatever he could to help. Then he jokes that they could give him any job, because he's still strong even at his age. Still, they let him spend the whole day resting with his granddaughter. But it was also a way to keep watching them for a while longer, since they still weren't sure if they could trust them. By day 36, the old man admits he's done resting and ready to work like everyone else. To keep the little girl occupied, Jin-sung-hai suggests she play around on the bicycle, while the protagonist heads out with her grandpa to gather wood in the forest before the old man tries to chop down a tree and the young guy tells him to wait. The old man leans in to ask what's wrong, and the boy explains that they can't cut down the trees because the loud noises might bring the zombies running. Jin-sung-hai says they'll only grab loose branches instead of cutting logs, so the old man apologizes for the slip-up. Eventually, the backpack is packed full of firewood. As they gather wood, the old man tells the protagonist he must have suffered much, sharing that his own granddaughter lost her parents young, just like the boy. The young man notes that the girl still has her grandfather, and the old man agrees, realizing he must live as long as possible for her sake. He doesn't know if he can survive until she's grown up. The hero promised with a steady voice that he would definitely do it. After that, the boy realizes BMG is truly a good guy with a heart full of responsibility. When they return to the warehouse, BMG leaps into her grandpa's arms and claims she rode the bike for an hour. Jinwoo walks up to his teammate and tells him that after talking with the old man in the woods, he believes they can trust him. He then asks if he thinks giving the man the rifle is a good idea, since he clearly knows how to handle a gun. Though Jinwoo is a little scared, he tells them he's okay with the plan. The girl thinks her grandpa's hat looks strange because it isn't the same as before. Still deep in the forest, Jinwoo offered BMG a fresh hat to invite him into their group. And after the old man first refused by saying his current one was fine, Jinwoo insisted the new one was much warmer. So he finally accepted the gift and thanked him. Suddenly, a message pops up announcing the new member has joined the Protagonist group, which means the shop prices are getting adjusted. As the boy steps into the shop, he quickly discovers that everything inside costs exactly 1 coin more than outside. Back in the present, the guy feels sick just thinking about it, and his friend gets worried, but Jinwoo says he's just tired. That night, the protagonist takes a quiet look around the shop and realizes it's gone too far, so he knows he can't just let new people join like it's no big deal. He grumbled that the random box was too pricey now compared to before, yet he paid up and bought it anyway. The box pops open and hands Jinwoo a document full of secrets. He snatches the paper with a grumble, questioning if it's worth 11 coins, but when he opens it, he discovers the surprise inside is actually quite amazing. Then he begins to think hard about what to do, knowing that if the document is right, many people will die soon. The paper holds 3 secrets, but the first 2 are useless junk we can ignore for now. The trouble is with the final one. It warns that a blizzard is on its way within 2 weeks. The next morning, the protagonist wakes up to find Jinwoo running around like crazy. Jinwoo still feels groggy from a poor night's sleep, his mind stuck on that mysterious document. Immediately after, he turns to his partner and asks what's happening. She says a wild boar showed up in the middle of the night. The boy panics, thinking a beast is inside, while the girl stays calm and says it just got stuck in a wire. Then she tells us that Jinwoo was the one who reported it, and Byamjiu confirmed the story. Outside, the old man even killed a few zombies for 2 coins, so the group heads in for breakfast while JCME suggests building an indoor ladder to stay safe, since last night's danger could happen again. Jinseong nodded, knowing they had to be ready for whatever might try to scale the wall. The man in glasses says he's planning to build a giant rolling tower, just like the ones knights used to attack castles with. Upon hearing this, the protagonist asks if he's certain since it sounds complicated, but he replies yes because he has a plan. After they finish eating, Jinseong shares a secret mission to stock up on food without mentioning the window, and everyone happily agrees to help. While Jinseong, the girl, went to find food, the protagonist and the old man headed out to gather firewood. So the 2 of them turned and pressed on deeper into the woods, searching for more branches. It doesn't take long for Byamjiu to tell everyone his backpack is already packed to the brim. The hero vows to go back one more time to bring the rest along. Suddenly, a strange sound snaps their attention, revealing that they are no longer alone in the forest. They both jump into a fighting pose, only to realize the noisy challenger is just a deer. The boy wonders if a deer can possibly stay alive when it's so cold. Byamjiu remarks that seeing this is a rare treat, especially with so little food and such biting cold. Jinseong says he hasn't seen a single animal, not even a cat or a pigeon, anywhere in the city. Suddenly, the deer locks its eyes on them with a creepy look before lunging forward. The old man rushes to tell his friend to hold his ground while he deals with it himself. Then he plunges his spear into the beast and leans against a nearby tree to hold it tight. The deer hit the ground and shook with fear. Byamjiu checks the frozen body and sees that the deer is still quite plump despite the ice. Right after that, the old man takes a deep breath and explains that it wasn't over, since the deer wasn't really what made the noise before. Hearing that, the protagonist gets scared and starts wondering if it's an animal he knows. So he tells them to leave the deer there and start the long walk home. Back at base, Jae-sung admits that the total lack of animals since the apocalypse began is really strange. Sonar wonders what all of that really means. Jae-sung holds a theory that might confuse her even more if he shares it without knowing the truth, so he chooses to stay silent. Later, while a group in the town gets ready to ride off together, the protagonist stays behind to read everything as his buddy keeps pedaling the bike. The kid wonders if people really post things like that now, and Jin-sung says yes, but it's still super hard for users to meet up since they're so far apart. After that, the guy explains that the community is just a place where people can share their happy thoughts. Jin-sung slows down to rest and notes that the community has suddenly become much livelier lately, likely because so many new people have joined. The protagonist nodded and explained that everyone was still alive in whatever place they ended up. Straight after that, Jin-sung wonders if the posts are truly anonymous, since the usernames are just numbers. He says those are just temporary numbers that change after 24 hours. Some folks even pick a picture to show who they are. Hearing that, the kid thinks he might be able to use the site to trade his information for something in return. Eventually, the protagonist and Byung-yu head back into the forest together. The young man asks if that's where they left the deer last time, and the older man says yes, even though it feels strange because they can't see the animal anywhere. Jin-sung looked down and saw that the floor was so clean there wasn't even a single drop of blood. The old man is certain no snow fell last night, leaving the protagonist even more puzzled about how the tracks vanished. After that, they stumble upon a rabbit lying on the ground, barely holding on to life. Even with both legs broken, it had somehow managed to stay alive. As they examine the injuries, they discover the creature is turning into a zombie just like people. And these strange signs in the woods weren't the only change, because animal posts from the community showed creatures appearing in new places too. After seeing animals fall sick from eating zombie meat, the protagonist decides it's safest to stop eating meat for a while. Jin-sung finds it strange because deer and rabbits eat plants, so he wonders if animals can turn into monsters just like people did. Jin-sung wonders if they've ever spotted a fully turned zombie, and the kid admits he doesn't know why either, so he warns everyone to steer clear of animals for now. Suddenly, Byung-yu bursts into the room to speak with the protagonist, and the old man explains that they must chop down trees since there are no more branches left on the ground for them to gather. First, he asks Jin-sung to craft another weapon that can strike from far away. Jin-sung reminds the hero that he already has a pistol in his possession. The kid says he wants to keep things quiet so he doesn't draw a crowd of zombies. Jin-sung then wonders if they can build a crossbow. Jin-sung wonders if just because her friend is smart, it doesn't mean he could do everything. The young guy asks Byung-yu to try building it, but even he can't pull off such a thing. The protagonist takes a deep breath and admits that a crossbow seems impossible, but Jin-sung insists it can actually be done. He talks about being a military fan who loved weapons and medieval armor, and how he and his friends built a crossbow over the summer break of college. He says he can build it, but it will take a long time since they don't have the right tools to do the job. On hearing that, his friend shouted that it was amazing. Then they set off on a hunt for more supplies. Outside, Jin-sung swings his axe and brings the tree crashing to the ground. So he sits down to rest for a moment. He says the trees are frozen, making the work even tougher. Suddenly, Byung-yu bursts in, panicking and shouting his name. The protagonist asks what's wrong, and the older man replies that there is a village on the other side of the mountain, but something about it feels strange. Then the two of them climbed up to a higher spot to get a better view. It feels just like a camp out here. Jin-sung remarks that it doesn't seem like many people have come. Before they move in, he tells them he can see something moving. Two people are struggling to carry a massive animal that has left Byung-yu in total shock. Soon they see the boar is sick just like the rest of the animals. The older man hesitates to warn them, but the young guy shakes his head and says no. They have no idea if those people are good or not, so it's